you guys hear me?
Yep.
The coffee, I don't know where your mic is, Jason, but the sound of you pouring coffee was really loud, which is spot on with the show. However, you were breathing very heavily before that, so I'm both worried about you and want you to know
Thank you. I was trying a different microphone
that,
today and it didn't
Andrew.
work.
I am tragically missing my product coffee mug and coffee. I'm spring breaking. Not the way we did it when we were young and cool and in college, the kind where it's sad, you lock yourself in the basement to take work calls while your grandbaby's asleep upstairs.
Are you hearing the music coming through?
No,
Oh, okay. Good. Or not good.
that explains the talking, right?
Yes.
I'll mute myself again.
Well, it doesn't really matter if it's not coming through, so. I wonder what was wrong with that setup. Oh well, doesn't matter. Hey Andrew, hey Ryan, and hey Holly. All right. We'll let folks
It
join
matters a
here over the
lot.
next couple minutes. What's
We're gonna
that?
expect it matters a lot. We're gonna expect a formal apology to be released on LinkedIn before the end of the day.
My fellow product coffeeans,
We
today's
apologize for
technical
today's
difficulties were inexcusable and created a situation which made a lot of people very uncomfortable. I didn't intend this.
self-flagellation.
Hmm. Ah, hey Alan, how are you?
Good, thanks. Hi, thanks.
Excellent.
Hello.
All right, we will be getting rolling here in just a minute. Let a few more people join here, and we'll get started with our networking round. And we have got a fantastic panel today. I'm super excited about today's session, and we're going to dig in on a topic that I've been getting a lot of questions about over the last couple of years. Kind of two combined topics, so it's going to be a good one. Let's see here. Where is my chicken? Alan, is this your first time here?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, welcome. That's fantastic. Welcome to Product Coffee.
Yeah, thanks for having
me. Yeah.
What brought you to us? How'd you find out about us? Where you been? What do you know?
I found out I found about it from Allison. I don't know if she's on here.
Yeah,
but,
she probably will be.
Yeah, so Allison told me about it. So I'm in a group with her for like job seekers that Adam Hessler set up. So she told me about this, and she said it'd be great to join, and that it's really great. So yeah, it's. And I was probably talking about some stuff to her and Adam that made her think that this would be good. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Allison has been a real advocate of the Never Search Alone program and has done a lot of kind of cross-pollinating between the two communities. And I forgot something really important here. There we go. We haven't been here in Marietta in the home studio for a little while. So Alan, just kind of give you a heads up of what to expect is we generally wait for about 10 people to show up in the room, and then we'll start kind of a round of introductions. And I would love you to take a minute to introduce yourself once we get a few more people in here and let the community get to know you a little bit. Tell everybody, who you are, what your most recent role is or what your current role is, and whatever has your attention right now. And that might be a challenge that you're trying to solve for. It might be something that you want to celebrate. It might be a topic that you're really interested in learning more about from a product management perspective. And so we'll just kind of go around and do that with as many people as we can until 8 o'clock when we'll kick off our panel. 8 Eastern, that is. Where are you from, Alan?
I'm near Toronto, so I'm Eastern.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Excellent. Excellent.
Brian.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Hey, Brian.
Howard. Andrew, I saw your product camp mug was looking a little faded. Or is it the lighting?
A decade old.
Yeah.
But the orange stayed good, but the green kind of went away. But it's kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's still very cool. It's probably one of the OGs, so we can't exactly just replace it. But you may be due for another mug.
It's not a first-year edition. I don't think I went the first year. It's probably second or third year.
Yeah, we had them for about the first, I think, 3 camps, and then we just kind of kept giving away. We had extras for a little while that we gave away. Funny story about those product camp mugs is I had a volunteer one year back early on that ended up taking a couple cases home at the end of the event, and just to help clear out the facility we were in. But at some point, her partner decided to do some house cleaning and took these 2 cases of product camp mugs to Goodwill. And one of my mother-in-law's neighbors said, "Hey, that was a weird thing. I saw a whole shelf of product camp mugs at Goodwill."
And Q into Jason trying to figure out how to go buy back all the mugs from the Goodwill.
Yeah, that is what went through my head. Didn't actually happen. All right, well let's get started here. We've got about 10 folks on here besides me, and I want to welcome everybody to Product Coffee. Let's get started with some introductions. And since I've kind of prepped you, Alan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody who doesn't know you?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Alan Hunt. My last role title was director, hub owner, digital product owner. I think it was kind of very long. And also I had, so I had, I had, what has my attention right now? Reading the new Marty Kagan, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, book. And that really is speaking to me because he's talking about a lot of things that I dealt with and I was going through that I didn't in my last role. So I'm not currently working, but didn't really realize that's what was happening. So I wish it had come out sooner. And I knew about it, 3 years ago. But deal with things as they are. And so I think my main attention, one of the things he talked about there was continuous delivery. So I mean, I've worked in agile environments for, since 2016, but there's always this kind of issue around actually getting continuous deployment. So I guess my question is what I'm like, should I have, as somebody who's doing product management and doing a leadership role, that's something that was, getting pushed off all the time. So should that have been something, was that my role to be pushing for that more? Because I think it's really critical to actually realizing the value that, is being talked about with agile, but getting that needle shifted in large enterprises is like really, really hard. Like I was up against a ton of people that were, all over a huge organization.
Right.
So like what's the, our role supposed to be in that, I guess is the question there. Yeah.
I think it's a great question, and anybody wants to weigh in on that, raise your hand, and I'll pull you to the front. I definitely have an opinion, and I'm sure Holly does as well because she's traveling and she has opinions and will travel. But but from my perspective, you cannot you can't force the change without creating a whole ton of alignment. You can't force that evolution. And for some companies, it's a massively expensive evolution to make. Going from an annual or quarterly release cycle where you have a lot of systems in place to protect the customers and to protect the system from a massive deployment and being able to roll it back, that just takes a lot of work to transform. And one of the cool things about this book is he's going into case studies of companies that actually have been able to make that transformation to prove that it's possible. He doesn't necessarily give the full playbook all the time, but at least it's demonstrating here's folks who actually did it and are actually getting benefits from it. I think for me, one of the number one things that we can do getting started is is the vocabulary. And I do agree with one of the things that Marty says, that if you're not at minimum pushing code to production every 2 weeks, if you're not deploying every 2 weeks, at least every 2 weeks, you are not agile. And banging that drum repeatedly, say, hey, we got a lot of agile processes, we're doing stand-ups, we're doing Scrum, but we're not agile, and we don't need to, we need to be really clear that we're not, will help to create that pain in a respectful way to drive some of the change. And Holly absolutely does have an opinion, so go for it, Holly.
Yeah, here I would just you probably know where I'm going to go with it is the counterpoint. I think to what Jason was saying, Alan, one of the biggest things we have to do from a product perspective is think about our product, right? And our market, our customers, our ecosystem, and ask yourself, Not that it doesn't matter, but is that the right choice? Because I'm going to argue against Jason there and say you can do agile. I had a team running COBOL programs that was as agile as you can get. We deployed code once a month, not every 2 weeks, but once a month. That our sprints were longer sprints. We had 3 week sprints because of the COBOL code and how that works, right, on a mainframe application. But you have to think about when you're talking about releasing code to production, what does that mean? Right. And how does that impact that customer and that market? Because where I was working was in banking. Banks cannot take code like that. You would destroy the payment system of America if you were trying to do that. So you have to step back and think about, do I need to be agile, first of all? And if I do, what are the benefits, right? So the reason we tried to go there as close as we could, right, was because there were huge benefits from the product organization and technology organization within Fiserv as a company to be as agile as we can. But you still have to think about the impact to the customer and the market with what you're trying to do. And if there's not a value for them, or if it's a negative for them, then you need to, I think it's entirely our job in product to step back and go, wait, hold up. Even if the CIO is like, yeah, agile, we're gonna do it. We drank the Kool-Aid, right? Like you have to be the one to actually advocate for let's pump the brakes and let's be careful with what we're doing so we don't actually have a negative impact on our customers who will go somewhere else for someone who's less disruptive.
Holly, I'll even go, retail is very similar to regulated industries like banking. Retail has periods where they have to freeze and do nothing. For example, starting with Black Friday through New Year.
Yeah, absolutely right.
I'll also say too that when you're an entrepreneur, which I am, of course, and I'm working on the launch of a new product right now, planning to announce it on Tuesday. What really matters is, are we making money? The focus is, are we going to make money with this? Can our customers consume it fast enough? Will we be able to take on the new customers we have? And I think Agile is a good concept, and employ it when you can, and don't do it when you shouldn't. But unfortunately, I think as you get bigger, as companies get bigger, they want to march to some beat, and all of a sudden, other things don't seem to matter anymore. Yes, for consumer products, great. But for a lot of the business products we offer, there's regulations, there are sales cycles, and then for entrepreneurs like myself, there's really much more of a focus on market fit. Are we rolling out fast enough? Are we adding enough revenue to reach the next point? I'm a small company guy, so as a product manager, I truly am a product manager. Right? I'm not a project manager, and I think really a lot of Agile is really more project focused than it is product focused.
There are a couple threads we could pull on there. I want to get around the room to do some more introductions, but I love a good morning debate. And this has been fun. I think one of the cool, Holly and Steve, one of the things that you both really leaned on there, I do completely agree with. And that was the notion of asking yourself, do I need to be agile? And that's a completely separate question from, am I agile? Am I agile enough? What is my role in pushing towards agile as a product management leader, Alan? There is absolutely great value in asking the question, do we need to be, should we be truly agile? And what problem are we solving by doing so? Now, the hypothesis is that companies that can lean into this rapid iteration can get things in front of customers and learn more faster. I worked in marketing technology, and we were in that same situation where you couldn't deploy basically from the end of October even you couldn't deploy new features, do a new release during from October to basically the second week of January. That doesn't mean that you couldn't be pushing code into test environment and into staging environments on a daily or weekly basis. There's a big difference between actually doing a marketing release and turning on a bunch of features and capabilities for all your customers, and actually getting the code into production and getting the code deployed. So there are lots of different ways to manage those special circumstances, but there's a huge value in being able to test with real customers faster and faster and faster. And I think that's the real value that we're trying to get towards. So
totally agree on that point. Cool. Totally agree on that point in the value. But back to just your original question, Alan, with product leader, don't be afraid to differentiate yourself by being the product leader that asks that question. If someone else is all like, ooh, we need to be agile, don't be afraid to ask, I hear you. Why? I understand agile, I understand the advantages it could have for us, but why? And challenge that point and ask that, it can actually be a really good thing to be seen, as it sets you apart as a product leader when you're willing to ask those hard questions and maybe slightly unpopular questions. And it kind of puts people on their heels and goes, "Ooh, wait, Holly has some different opinions. Huh, interesting."
Yeah. I do want to get to some other introductions, but I want to invite specifically, I want to invite Brian to introduce yourself because you dropped a comment in there, and I would love you to speak to that after you introduce yourself and tell us what has your attention.
Yeah, sure. So hi, I'm Brian Huss. I'm the VP of Innovation at Prize Picks. We're the the biggest daily fantasy sports company in the United States. And I'm going to caught a recent story that we are about to expand significantly. We've got Books in Space and Star Medals announced 1,000 jobs coming up in the next 7 years. So what has my attention is where all the different lines of business, new products, and things that we are going to go into, both well, first to create all those jobs, but making sure that we're not boiling the ocean and that we are really, really focusing on opportunities which are net new, but which align with our mission and vision. There's so many things we could do. What should we do? That's the next real challenge for me, especially given the nature of like that's my job. Take what worked great about the first product and figure out what else to do with it.
Very cool.
But yeah, I'll talk about the shape up thing for a second. Yeah, it was something that our VP of engineering was really excited about to say like, hey, this is an opportunity for engineers to get involved in the process earlier, and a better way to think about a fixed time and variable scope as opposed to variable time and fixed scope. It just didn't really work that way. I think part of that is just personal resistance from a lot of people and saying like, this is so different than anything I've ever done, and it's weird, and I don't like it. So I don't know. Given more runway, maybe it would have had a shot. But yeah, I think there was also a challenge of um, there are places, given that we're in a regulated industry too, with real money gaming, that it's only so flexible that you can be. There are some things that just have to happen exactly as specified, and the delightful discovery of a solution by a team together. Sometimes we can't always get there.
Yep. All right. So thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's another good perspective. So answer your questions all over the place, Alan. But I think as a product leader, you got a big voice, and leading the discussion is a really powerful place to be in, as opposed to just being a participant in what's dictated.
Thank you. Thanks. That's great.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Welcome to Product Coffee. Let's see here. Let's jump over to by the way, for those of you who don't know the order of operations here, if you turn your camera on, and I would really appreciate you turning your camera on, we would love to have you introduce yourself and tell us what has your attention. And we got about 20 folks on the call right now. There's a lot of folks that we've met before, but we'll try to get to some new folks as well, or some folks we haven't seen for quite a while. Let's jump over to Howard. Welcome back, Howard. Haven't seen you in a little while.
Hey guys, it's been a little while. So I'm Howard Chalmers. Been in product for a while. My current role, I have a new title, which is Transformation Consulting Director. So I am at NTT Data. As part of an acquisition last year. We're finally integrated. What has my attention is that I'm moving teams within NTT Data. I have been part of a little consulting firm called Aspirant that got acquired by NTT Data last year. We have now become the data and AI, sort of data analytics and AI practice within NTT Data. So I've been leading sort of the data product management group, and I am moving to a sort of an incubator space within NTT Data called Launch. And not sure exactly if I'm going to end up in the product. It'll be in product within Launch, but there are two teams. There's one that's more around sort of business transformation, and there's one that's specifically product focused. I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go. So this conversation around Agile is very much on my mind. I've always been one to say that Agile is much more about a mindset than a methodology, than any specific framework. And Alan, I think your challenge there is a great one, right? To kind of think through that. I agree with everything that everybody's been talking about, right? It's from my perspective, there is so much that you can do um, that benefits a company and benefits a team and benefits your customers by thinking in agile ways. And what I say, being agile, much more valuable than doing agile. So that is actually what's on my mind right now is how do I take, really 20 years of agile and product management experience and bring that to bear on a new team or a new team for me within NTT Data. So happy to be here. It has been a
Cool.
minute.
Well, welcome. Yeah, welcome back. Glad to see you're able to get your head above water a little bit for a minute.
Absolutely. Thanks.
So yeah, great to see you, Howard. All right, so let's see here. What I want to do, we've got a couple of new folks who are also on our panel today, and we'll do kind of a formal introduction in a minute. But I want to make sure that we kind of pre-introduce. We've got Ryan, who I don't know if you've joined us before on Product Coffee, maybe once or twice, Ryan.
Yeah, it's been a few years now, but yeah, once or twice before.
Well, welcome back. Welcome
I've been
back.
crying the whole time. This is justifiable and documented.
And we've also got Lisa is back with us. You were here a couple weeks ago. Glad to have you back, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll get to kind of some formal introductions in a moment. And Deepak will be with us in just a minute as well. I want to actually, Andrew, I would love to have you introduce yourself. And as an Agile guru, would love your take on the question as well.
Hey, I'm Andrew Fuquay. I am currently a capability owner, whatever that means, at Broadcom. At work, the thing that has my focus is building product. Got a greenfield thing we're working on, so it's kind of fun. We have regular design partner discussions with interested customers, interested prospects, so that's going well. Have one of them today, in fact. And I think other than that, the other thing that's on my mind is I'm enjoying the book club, the Good Strategy, Bad Strategy book club, particularly the people on there, just to mention one of them. Well, I won't mention one of them, but there's one guy I've worked with before who I've been speaking with this in years past, and I'm enjoying kind of going through hearing his perspective on the book club. It's really super. Perspective on Agile, I think I am. I'm to the point where I don't care. I just do what works.
I love
I've
that.
I've been in it all. I've seen it all, and I just things happen, and environment matters. What you can do depends on the people and the organization and the situation and what you're building, and just do what's working, and don't overthink it or invest too much in it. I've done the big transformations, and I do understand that if you've got a big organization and you're trying to make improvements, it takes a lot of effort. But I guess maybe you could say I'm burnt out on all of that effort. And I'm kind of, even though I'm in a big organization right now, it's a agile organization, and they are able to do continuous deployment of dozens of components really continuously through the day. And yet, even though I'm in a big organization and there's some big organization, blah, 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 I'm lucky to be able to be in kind of a fairly isolated, smallish team within that. So that's super for me. Uh, get close to the team and close to the customer and build stuff and learn. So I'm in a pretty good spot at the moment. So I don't know. That might not be, I don't know if that's useful to anybody, but I've seen the struggles with big organizations or even any organization in Agile. Um, I guess I'm enjoying being out of the debate about it all for a while.
Fair enough. And I think what Steve said a minute ago really kind of brings home what you're saying as well, Andrew. Kind of those two things together is ultimately do what works. We're talking about creating value for customers, for markets, solving problems. And a lot of people have found that one technique or another helps them do that. Some people really like Scrum. Some people really like Kanban. What works for your team is what works for your team. The real measure of success is, are we creating the right kind of value, and are we creating the maximum value we can create?
And I like your
Well
comment
said,
in the
Jason.
chat, Jason. I agree. I do agree with my statement to find what works, which everyone else is saying too, right? But don't call yourself agile if you're not agile. I used to joke all the time that we were wagile because we were like, waterfall agile or modified agile or something else. Come up with some other name. Just say we're nimble and move on.
Yep. Yep.
I would like
And
to see product become more strategic on delivering that value and then hold engineering more accountable to deliver the stuff. I know product does a lot of poking engineering with a stick to get stuff turned on. I don't care how they do it. But if you don't poke them, then nothing ever comes out for some reason. But I think you got to build the right products is more important than if it's delivered every 2 weeks or month or PI or whatever. It's got to be the right thing.
Yep. Completely. And I see Deepak's back on camera. We'll do the big formal introductions, but why don't you say hi real quick, Deepak from Insight Software?
Morning, folks. Good conversation. So I will add my commentary there in terms of agile and how fast we ship products. We are a product company, right? So we have almost 80 plus products in our portfolio. So for us, it's has to be agile, right? We used to be safe agile at some point, and we felt that it was like too slow because the planning there was no opportunity to actually modify what we initially planned, and was too slow to changes and innovation. So we went from safe to agile. So it actually has made a big difference. I think one commentary I heard was being agile and following agile methodology. I think they're two different things because we used to have monthly releases to customers, and the customers would say, "Whoa, I can't keep up with your release because our products are embedded in other applications, so they have to actually make changes to their application." It was not possible. So we went from a monthly release to quarterly release. Even that is sometimes too rapid for our customers, right? So what we do is we obviously manage 4 code bases, like before releases. Say, okay, the fourth one we have to update. But we do monthly releases in the sense that we have the 3 week sprint planning, right? So we do the 3 week sprint. So that code is obviously taken by our evaluation customers who are evaluating products, our SC team, on the demo server and all the stuff are getting updated by that. So our customers and prospects are seeing, value faster, but our production customers are taking it only every quarter, right? So it's a complex thing when you're working on an enterprise versus serving your independent software vendor customers. There are 2 different aspects to it.
Yep. Yep. Well, welcome. We're really glad to have you. Thank you. And we're going to get a lot deeper, and we're going to get a lot into some of your strategic thoughts here in just a minute too. So I'm really excited to have you here with us.
So I'm joining from Raleigh, North Carolina. So that's where I'm headquartered. Yeah. So I've been a director of product for like 3 years now. And prior to that, I was in solutions engineering, technical account management, and whatever. So obviously, being on the front side of the customer base, hearing the customer voice, right? And then now actually serving the customer. So I can bring my perspective to it.
Excellent. Well, we're excited to have you. I do want to tell you before we get in here, I don't know if you have a way to pull the microphone in. Your sound is breaking up a lot when you're speaking.
Okay.
So if you got something, some tricks you can work on that end, hopefully we'll be able to get it all when we get live here with our actual session here in just a minute. So thanks and welcome. Glad to have you. All right, got time for at least one more. Let's jump over to John Mansour from Product Management University. Hey, John. Maybe.
John, are you on mute?
Jason, you cut out there for a minute.
Oh, great. Awesome. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. I said, let's jump over to, and then I had about 10 seconds worth of silence.
Oh, that's how we're going to go with it now. Okay, gotcha. Well, I was calling on you. So.
Oh, well, good morning, everybody. Nice to be here.
Welcome.
And, strategy is always a fun subject, and if Lisa Crimes is one of the featured panelists, it's must-see TV, right? So I had to be here.
Totally.
But no, on the subject of strategy, this is something I talk a lot about, I write a lot about, and I just published an article to my blog yesterday about why market leadership starts with product management. And the crux of that article really is about all of the upstream, like product management has to know the market and the customers better than everyone else to make this thing work, to set the wheels in motion for engineering, marketing, sales, and customer experience teams. So that's the crux of the article. But, it's like someone just said here, there are a lot of different ways to make this work, and whatever works for your team works for your team. So looking forward to all the different perspectives here today. I'll post a link to my article here in the chat, but looking forward to listening to the conversation today.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Really glad to have you here, and it is 8:01, so let's get started with today's session. But before we actually get into the meat of the session, I want to welcome everybody to Product Coffee, and once again, thank you to John. I see we've got Andy Pohl on here. I know we've got Deepak from Insight Software, and I want to. We do this product copy session every single week, and it is not possible without the help of our sponsors. We could not be bringing this to you in all corners of the world and doing all that we do here without our sponsors. And I've got them up on the screen. I'm also dropping some links in the chat, and I want to encourage everyone to take just a quick moment to click through, get to know all of our sponsors. And if you have an opportunity to bring them into your organization or to introduce them to a professional colleague where they may be able to help, take that opportunity and do make that introduction to thank them for supporting your community here at Product Coffee. This is, they reach in deep. They support us financially, they support us with their talent and their thought leadership, and we want to thank them by making sure that we're giving them opportunities to win business when it makes sense. I want to also specifically call out Method and Podium Studios. You'll notice that I am not at Podium today. We had the studio and the engineering team was booked with previous engagements today when we set this up. So I'm back in the home studio, which we haven't seen for a little while, but we'll be back at Podium Studios next week for our office hours session.
It's a nice change of pace.
It is. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely good to not have to leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So that was the good side. So thanks to all of our sponsors, and Ode is here. Wow, that's awesome to see you, Ode. And yeah, you missed
we don't
the studio,
see you. Where's your camera? Yeah, your camera's not on, but we don't see you. But all right, fine.
Sorry, it's way too late for me. Sorry.
Dude, I look like this. I'm like Allison. I did not wash my hair for this.
All right. So And a little housekeeping note for those of you who are new to Product Coffee. And one of the things that we do here is we have a notes document. You can jump over to productcoffee.com/notes. And that'll bring up a Google Doc, and we would love everybody to take notes in that document instead of on your own. We'll share it with everybody. You can save this document to your own drive, to your own Google Drive, or just save a link to it. It will be there for you to access after the fact. And so if you hear a thought that you want to capture, if you think of a book or an article or something that you want to share that you think is really relevant to the conversation, putting it in there as a permanent record, a part of the permanent record of this today's session is a great service that you can do as part of the community as well. All right. At the end of the month, May 26th, we have got an awesome workshop coming up with Dave Perea, who many of you already know. You follow him on LinkedIn and Medium, and now he's on Substack. Dave has a new book called coming out, I think in May. It's coming out very soon, called Untrapping Product Teams. And he has been talking about no BS product management for years as well. Dave's put together an amazing workshop for us on crafting a product strategy that works. And it's going to be a 2-hour workshop on May 26th. You can go to productcoffee.com, get all the details, and register there. Early bird pricing is still live through the end of this week. And on Friday of this week at noon Eastern time, I'm going to be doing a live stream talk with David where we're going to talk about product strategy and challenges that people run into, as well as a little bit about his new book. You can follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn to watch that live stream. But today, we are getting to an awesome panel, and I would like to introduce Holly Jewell, who will tell us about today's panel.
In order to do that, I should unmute myself, huh? Hey guys, good morning. I'm so excited about today's session. You guys all know me, Holly Jewell. I lead the programming team here at Product Coffee, as well as Product Camp Atlanta. Stay tuned for thoughts there. But for today's session, our April theme is on product strategy, right? You can see the building as we go through the year. And today's panel, we're going to talk about the role that analytics or product data, product analytics can play in our product strategy, both forming a new one, as well as, when you should be looking at those analytics or leveraging the data that you have about your product to revisit your strategy and say, is this working? What do I need to tweak? And we have just some amazing people here that are absolute experts on this subject, as well as obviously all the thought leadership in the room that can jump in and add to this as well. So I'm excited to have Lisa Crimes with us. As mentioned today, just a long, should say long as a woman, we don't always like that, right, Lisa? But, an amazing career, a very experienced product leader, even though she started when she was 5. And then, of course, Ryan, I'm so glad that you were able to join us for this. I know you do a lot and talk about how you leverage analytics in your job there at CallRail. And Deepak, I'm so excited to have you here from Insight Software to really talk about what the data is, what analytics we can get, and how we should be thinking about them. Because sometimes we're just not on the product side, right? We're not perfect in our ivory tower. So anyway, that's all I would really say about today's session.
Very good. So I think what we'll do is we'll continue to introduce each of our panelists, but let's start with Lisa since you kind of called her out. Lisa is a longtime member of our product community, as Holly said. Currently, Lisa is the managing director for Execulence, and she's a strategic advisor to product teams and product organizations. She's got an incredible career, especially in healthcare technology, but lots of different technology areas on product management, product marketing side. She's been the CEO of a couple of companies, just a fantastic career. Lisa, I would love you to jump in and introduce yourself a little further, and we'll kick off the panel with a question for you. Can you share an example where product analytics directly influenced a strategic decision in your work with health technology startups?
Sure. Hey, Jason. Hey, Holly. Great to see everyone. So I'll just I think you said also to introduce myself a little bit more than that. Like Jason said, most of my roles have been in product management and strategy in healthcare technology. I started on the enterprise side for a number of years. In the last 5 or 6 years, I've moved over into the startup world. Definitely have the startup bug, and have had the opportunity to be fractional chief product officer, chief commercial growth officer, really chief whatever hat I needed to wear for the day, is what I've been doing. So data and analytics is just core to everything that we do in product. When I think about it, all the way from the marketing side and the strategy and the understanding our customers and what direction that we want to go, it's table stakes, right? So there was a point, as Holly pointed out throughout my career, that we haven't always had access to this level of data to make decisions, but that certainly has changed these days. And I would consider it table stakes. So let's see, to highlight a couple of examples just to get us started. I would say, well, you know what? I'm going to probably start in an unusual way. As we get through this, one of the ways that I would like to also highlight is not just the quantitative data, but the qualitative data that we can collect. So I would say one great example of that is some of the research that I've been able to do and bring back into the product organizations of whether or not a product should go forward or not. And I did that by going out, spending time with our customers, doing a lot of ethnographic research, bringing that back in, analyzing the data on what our clients were saying to us about how they were using the product, what direction that they wanted to go, and using that to influence what the product strategy itself was in the end, whether or not we took the product forward, whether or not we ended the product, etc. So that's just one of the techniques. And I think we've talked about this previously on other product coffees about human-centered design and some of the techniques and tools that you can use there. So that's just one example of data, but there's many more that we're going to get into.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. Welcome. And next, let's jump over to Ryan Johnson, who is currently the Chief Product Officer at CallRail. And Ryan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your background a little bit as well?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. Short background, I started my career in finance accounting, happened to take one CS class at my liberal arts college that I went to. That was the one thing that changed my career forever. I actually still talk to the professor to this day. And spent a few years kind of both in finance, in product and engineering, and actually started my tech journey in SEO and SEM for law firms in the early 2000s, and it kind of evolved from there. I've been on multiple sides of the aisle. So I've been an engineering manager at a company here locally in Atlanta called Vitru that got acquired by Oracle in 2012. And then I transitioned to the product side for almost 10 years now on the product leadership side. I've been at CallRail 6.5 years, which is wild for a high growth startup. It's the longest I've been anywhere. And my journey is interesting. I came in as the VP of product to help the two founders. There's a CPO, there's a CEO. And so that's always very interesting, right? They're like, hey, we need to bring someone in with like real product experience, not all homegrown. And how do we help grow the company? But then, as it often happens, they moved on to the board and I moved into the CPO role. And so it's been a really interesting and fun journey. I think when I started, we were like 15 million in ARR. We're almost at 100 million, like literally weeks away. So just waiting to break that ceiling there. And, and the next challenge is, okay, how do you take that, $100 million high growth startup to, 200, 250, which is like a whole nother ball game.
Yes, it is. It's a big, fun challenge to bite off. Definitely looking forward to watching that continued growth. All right. So, welcome, Ryan. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is, I wanted to ask you about CallRail's specific experience with product analytics, and how do you make sure at CallRail that your product analytics lead to real actionable insights rather than just being a data dump? Because I know data is a big deal for you guys.
Yes. So it's a big deal for our customers. So if you think of our end customers, I mean, they rely on the data that we provide to them. So it's at our core. I think the evolution, I kind of laugh, the 6 years ago, the data was the two founders, right? It was all hunches and guts, and this is what we think about the market. And we were really small and agile. So how do we build upon that, and then build a program around how do we properly use data to help affect our decisions, especially as the company has grown and the platform has grown. I think some of the things that we've went through is like agreeing on what data we should be utilizing. I think when I came in, we were using Google Analytics and Full Story and Mixpanel and on and on and on. And so that's always interesting because you have people looking at data from different sources. Of course, you run into the fun challenge when you realize that the data is not correct, and you have to kind of go back to the drawing board of maybe some of your hypotheses and assumptions. So I think for us, it was really that transition to say, okay, what are the systems and tools that we want to use, that we believe in? Let's get agreement on that company-wide, even outside of product, because we have dependencies on our BI team and other things. And then I think finally it's, I think we started with like, hey, let's measure some things after, but now we don't start any sprint or any group of projects without, what are we trying to affect up front? Like that was the biggest change. And that's really the shift between data for outcomes versus data for output. Did we meet this deadline? Great. But like what outcome were we trying to move? That kind of relates all the way up to the company OKR. So if we're trying to grow revenue by X or reduce churn, how does that trickle down to what those teams are working on and what can they track that we could point towards and say, oh yeah, we know here are the leading indicators that will affect churn in the future.
Very good. And real quickly, just for those who don't know CallRail, would you give just a really quick, because you were kind of talking about your customers really relying on the data. Let's tell everybody what CallRail does.
Sure. We're a lead intelligence platform. So originally CallRail started with call tracking. We live in SMB and the agencies that support them. And so the initial kind of start at CallRail was how do we bring this technology to make it affordable, accessible to small, medium businesses that rely heavily on inbound phone calls. So if you think of real estate agents and plumbers and law firms, they all heavily rely on that. And so we've developed technology to basically be able to understand the journey from online to offline conversion and who is coming from where, what marketing efforts are being are bringing the best ROI. And we've evolved over this time to really look at the intelligence of what actually happens during the conversation, whether it's a text message or a phone call. So it's a lot of I would say, our recent strategies around how do we utilize AI to best analyze what's being said on the phone call to really help with all that additional attribution and marketing data.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. Let's jump over next to Deepak Vittal, who is Director of Product Management for our sponsor, Logi Symphony by Insight Software. I want to thank you so much for being here, Deepak. And if you would, tell us a little bit about Insight Software and your background as well.
Sure. I switched to my AirPod, so can you hear me better now?
Yes, sounds great.
Cool. All right, cool. Yeah. So nice to see everybody. It's a lot of folks here actually. We're having a coffee. First time here. Thank you for inviting me. Hopefully this is not the first of the last, right? So I should be able to join more. So I am based out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and that's where our company is headquartered. Insight Software is almost a $600 million company, which you probably never heard of because we are a private equity-backed company. We actually formed through acquisition about 5 years ago. In 5 years, we grew from 40 million to a $600 million company, right? So we have 20, 23, 24 companies within our hood, and we have 80 plus products. So it's a pretty big product organization. And we have three pillars like finance, accounting, and then data analytics or operations, I should say. And I'm one of the pillar leaders on the data analytics side of things. So our company went from, I would say it's still sales led, but I would say it's more of a product led company now. So we product teams are like the center of everything. We kind of manage the whole hub and spoke model, right? So we are not only just product leaders, we're also P&L owners. So that's a huge responsibility on our side. So what does it mean? In my daily life, I would say, not only creating product strategy, making things work for our customers, also need to track the KPIs as Ryan was mentioning, right? It's all about, are we acquiring new business, right? Increasing our bookings and growth, reducing churn, expanding our ARR, right, which is basically net retention. And then finally, on the product side, how are we increasing the engagement and adoption? And I think that's where the product analytics plays a big role in there, right? How do we make sure that we are building products that the customers will love and can continue to use that product? I actually quickly looked up our Salesforce, and CallRail is a customer of Logi Symphony. I just saw that. So I figured the name sounds very familiar. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, we serve customers like them, which is like software vendors who are embedding our product within their product, right? So that's the main crux of it. So yeah, that's a quick introduction. I've been in this role for like 3 years now. And prior to that, I was on the other side, which is the voice of customer, right? So I was in the solution engineering side of things, and also before that, customer success and technical account management. So I would actually get the customer feedback and trickle it down to the product team. And it would take, depending on what kind of agile or safe or whatever it is, it will go into the product at some point of time. I kind of came and kind of changed a lot of things, kind of accelerated stuff, right? So because I understand that when you're on the field, it's so hard, right? So customers are asking for things, and sales is asking for stuff, right? Hey, I need this feature to, what's the evaluation? So I need to lock this customer. So yeah, I am on the receiving end of it, but I love it. I love this challenge. I can't hear you.
Yeah, very good. So welcome, and we are so glad to have you here. I wanted to kind of kick things off for you. And you kind of started into it a little bit, but I'd love to go a little bit deeper into how your product teams at Insight Software integrate product analytics into your own day-to-day strategic planning.
Yeah. So as I said, we actually have multiple products, right? So we have built a connector platform, which actually serves our office of the CFO customer base, right? So whether you're an accounting team, or whether you're in the finance team, or if you're getting data from other different ERPs. So we have multiple products, that high growth products that we have enabled on the platform. So the platform has about like 15 products there. And not only the platform has our product, Logi Symphony embedded to serve the analytics purposes, we also have Pendo to actually track the product analytics. So Pendo actually keeps track of all the usage, daily active usage, monthly active usage, customer journey, right? Where customers are getting blocked. And also what we do is based on that, we also do custom onboarding, right? In the sense that when customer is getting onboarded, how can we help them with user navigation, guidance, and things like that. So it's a real-time customer feedback, right? Whereas in old days, we would actually collect from AHA. We still use that for AHA for collecting customer feedback and for high-level planning and things like that, right? But the product analytics takes it one level further, which is that it gives you real-time feedback. So we actually look at the data on a weekly basis in terms of what's happening, and then that's how you refine the product, right? So if somebody is getting stuck, let's say if I'm creating a dashboard, I'm getting stuck in creating a data source, right? That's where most of the time, when you want to get into the insights, you need to get the data clean first, and then getting in the shape for it to be consumed. So many times people do get stuck in some of those areas because they don't know how to use certain features. So we can see that real time, and we can keep refining that. I would say the experience, the customer experience. So I would say that's how we use that. I don't know if it's.
I keep doing that. Thank you. So you got an expectation for excellence in the customer experience, and you're using those product analytics specifically to measure your success against that expectation and identify areas where you're not getting the kind of experience and flow through in customer interaction, user interaction that you want to get.
Yeah. So we are at a journey right now where that data is not enough for us. So we have data from CRM system like Salesforce, and we have Zendesk support tickets and whatever, right? So where I am right now is, can I get combine all those data, right? Because data is so powerful when you can actually get it. And also with AI now, right? So we have implemented AI in our company-wide now. So we are using Azure and AI for that. Can we use AI to actually get all the data, so we can actually go to the text data, right, that comes in all the different places, to see, can we even make it even more powerful in terms of enhancing the customer experience.
Very good. Well, thank you, and welcome to Product Coffee. Thanks for being a part of this panel. And I want to remind everybody in the audience that Product Coffee panels are not like every other panel that you've been to on a webinar or anything like that. Everybody gets to participate. If you'd like to ask a question, you can drop it in chat, or you can throw your hand up and come on camera and ask the question yourself. Or if you've got an insight to some of the things that we're talking about and you'd really like to be a part of the discussion as well, please just kind of throw your hand up and we will bring you into that discussion as well. So one of the questions I have for the panel in general, and I'll be free to let anybody join in. And I might also ask, I see that we've got our good friend Gopal here as well, and we've also got Cookie here. I would love to hear from a few people what frameworks you found effective for evaluating the kinds of customer insights and competitive analysis. How have you used product analytics to really, and what frameworks have you used with those product analytics tools in order to evaluate the kinds of customer insights you need to pull in for strategic planning purposes?
Gopal, are you able to unmute and address that?
Yeah. I'm actually at a parking lot. I'm in between a couple of meetings. Just to introduce myself, I'm Gopal Narasimhan. I'm a former vice president of product at FedEx, and I spent close to 20 years there. So that's just my background. I think the question that you're asking in terms of frameworks from my perspective, Jason, is multifold, right? Like, I think earlier on, I think some of the panelists talked about how do you leverage both quantitative and qualitative data to make decisions. Some of the things that you use is, while you have the numbers, which kind of gives you, the analytics give you a direction in terms of where you want to go. But the usage doesn't necessarily mean, even if the usage is low, doesn't mean the product is bad. or the feature is bad. So you would, I would normally augment the analytics with a lot of design thinking and experiential and observational um, flows and journeys of customers or users to really understand, okay, is this feature that is being rolled out, is it because there is no value in that feature, or is it because of usability, or is it because of training? So when you actually double click on the analytics, I think the analytics is a great starting point. I think some of the panelists mentioned multiple tools that are out there. And any of those tools, I think, are fantastic to start the process of what are people using and where is the journey, where are we dropping the people on the journey. But then once you get past that and you're trying to understand, do I keep investing in this feature, or do I need to drop it because it's not working? That decision, I think, goes through for me a little bit of experiential and journey mapping and understanding the users a little bit more before I make a decision. Do I invest more, or do I cut bait because this is not working?
And this gets a little bit into kind of the meat of the question. So thank you so much for that, because the real meat of the question here that we're trying to get to is, are product analytics purely a tactical measuring tool, or how should one think about product analytics from a strategic perspective, from a product strategy perspective? And I think you really touched on that very well there, Gopal. And I want to kind of continue the discussion on that as well.
I'm going to jump in just because I think I touched on it when we started too. I would agree. I think, data and analytics are table stakes to any strategy these days, right? So the data is coming from a lot of different sources, and just like Gopal highlighted as well, it's quantitative as well as qualitative. It's a lot of different sources. It's really what you do with that and how you understand it. What are the insights that you're gleaming from it? And the tools that you use, there's a lot of ones that are really effective for for all the way from the analytics within the product itself, things like Pendo. I'm sure that there's a lot of others that are out there that people are using. You can just build it. I've had the development team actually, just as part of our data strategy and roadmap, just build in product analytics in right from the beginning, just build it into the product or use off-the-shelf tools. But then there's the tools and the frameworks, to your earlier question, Jason, around what are the kind of the key metrics that we're going to be tracking on the back end? What are how do you design those OKRs? What is their North Star metric? I mean, like literally, like what are there's all kinds of ways that you can, and different tools and techniques that you can use to analyze the different sources of data that are coming in.
And I love the inclusion of the North Star metric as part of that consideration, because even with the North Star, sometimes the North Star metric is purely a business metric that you can't necessarily track through the product. It takes that combination of data, and then there are other leading indicators that can kind of give you headlights as to whether you're moving in the right direction for your North Star as well. So Ryan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is getting agreement organizationally that these are the right metrics to actually track from a product perspective. I think in our EDP group, we may agree, but if the rest of the leadership team or other groups aren't bought into like, hey, these are the metrics we should track. So I think out of the gate, that alignment is just so critical. So it could be the tools we use, or it could be the things that we want to track. I think that it is the responsibility of the product organization to help surface these things to help drive strategy in the future. And the example that we are kind of in the midst of at CallRail is The question we get a lot is, what if people, especially with all this AI advance, stop calling, right? Or it's automated. Like, how are you protecting the business, right? And so, messaging comes into play. And so we're tracking, every single day, like what is call volume, what is minutes, and what is the user behavior that may or may not be changing. And so that is really driving a lot of the strategy for the future of the platform to say, hey, messaging is really important. Here's all the product analytics that are showing that, where this is the behavior that's changed. And in our world, it was pretty interesting because of COVID. We had, this huge spike because everybody went to using phone calls, to like normalization, and then now to how are all these companies utilizing AI to maybe help be more efficient or not have people call them, and how do we basically get ourselves in a good defensible position but also allow a path to grow. And I can tell you, without those analytics, it would have been hard to convince a lot of folks out there about why we should invest in that.
Great, thank you. And Deepak, any additional thoughts on this thread before we go over to John?
Yeah, we talked about whether it's a tactical tool or not, right? Or is it strategic? Strategic in terms of your North Star metric. I would say right now the way it is positioned is like kind of tactical, right? Because it's capturing real-time feedback, so we can actually make changes immediately. But one way that really helps us is the NPS, right? So I think if you think about it, NPS is something that everybody is looking for. So if you can make changes quickly on a product, it keeps the customer happy. So you keep them happy, then they're on the system a lot, and they start promoting you. That's a good thing, right? Finding ARR. But what I would say is that using that data for your strategic planning is where it really adds value, right? So like I said, we are not only leveraging product analytics data, that's only one metric point for us. We use the data with our support system and all the other things as well, voice of customer data as well. Voice of customer data that comes from AHA and other things is where the strategic roadmap gets created. But where we actually augment that data with the product analytics is the customer journey, user behavior, and things like that. That helps us saying that whether this feature, whatever ROI, is it going to get that, right? What are the big rocks that we can take into the product in the next release roadmap? So definitely it's, we're using as tactical, but we also use that for our strategic planning.
I like it. So it's really a both and, not a either or.
Yeah, 100%. I think NPS is something that we should be leveraging.
Can I throw in a kind of a contrary point to maybe NPS, because I don't think it works for all industries, and I think you've got to be really careful with it too. That you understand what's underneath it, right? So as much as I love quantitative data, it's so key. I mean, I've built lots of analytics platforms. But you've got to also bring in the quality, I keep saying this, the qualitative side to understand what's behind your NPS. So yes, I agree from, it is a valuable source. Just the and part is, make sure you dig into it to really understand what's underneath it, and then make sure you tie it back to the product, the value and what customers are really willing to pay for, and not just what they're not just a few people maybe that have responded to a survey.
Yep. Love
Amen.
it. Yep.
Preach, preach, preach.
Great points across the board. Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Lisa. John Harmer from Google, you've had your hand up for a couple of minutes. I'll let you rest it now and bring it down and talk to us.
How he's doing that while driving is also a good question.
Yeah, nothing bad could come of this, right? So if you see the camera go like this, call 911. I'm on 400 going down. So Lisa hinted at it just now, and it was also a callback to what Gopal was talking about earlier. The analytics are interesting in that they can in your product. But Gopal talked about like you need to root cause what is driving that metric to go up or down, and you need to be really careful that you aren't driving, let's say, a time on page metric as your North Star because you're Facebook or whatever, and then it's just like things are actually harder to accomplish, and that's why your time on page is going up. If you think of like the Clayton Christensen jobs to be done milkshake story, which hopefully everybody is familiar with at this point, like they kept making changes, but their North Star metric did not increase. And it's because they didn't understand the fundamental, job to be done, the fundamental why that the users had underlying all of that stuff. And so if you just keep track of your product metrics without, as Lisa was saying, understanding what's driving your NPS or what's driving all those other things, you could quickly go down some pretty dangerous paths.
Very good. And Cookie, welcome back to Product Coffee, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. My name's Hamish Cook. People call me Cookie. I'm based in Atlanta, product guy. First off, thanks for having me, Jason. Thanks for everything you do for this community here. We really appreciate you, mate. I love this conversation, and I want to call back a little bit to what I heard Ryan say right up the beginning, which is sort of threading the line between what the teams do all the way through to say the OKRs. And if I really think about what the purpose of this conversation is, like how do you tie product analytics to strategic planning? So for me, I kind of like to take a step back and think of it much more simplistically as like, well, what is strategic planning, right? Strategic planning typically is like having a further out view of the impact or the value that you and the senior leadership team want to create, probably at either a portfolio level or a company level, right? And you, as that team sort of plans that out and says strategically, this is the value we want to create at this point in time. Typically, that strategic planning is going to have some sort of value or impact assessment, whether it's a financial assessment, whether it's a strategic impact, such as some measure on entering a new market. So it might be a qualitative or financial or whatever. And so it's kind of what like Ryan was saying earlier. It's so important that I think the senior leadership team are very clear on how they define impact and value at that level, at that strategic level, so that the teams who are sitting a little bit lower down, there is no gray or misunderstanding that they have in terms of their interpretation of what value or impact or how value is, or impact is defined at each moment in time. Because then when you correlate that to product usage, right? Like, again, taking a step back, product usage data is information that we are able to gather because we've made an assumption that if we build a piece of software and we elicit a certain response from a user or a cohort of users, we will then translate that into impact or value. But if we're not doing the work to understand first what the impact or value is, and then how do we translate that usage data, not just product usage data, but there was a comment about, say, customer delight metrics, whether it's CSAT or NPS. Like, this is all data that is not helpful if we're not actually doing the job of translating it to the very definition of value or impact that we've been asked to deliver upon from the senior level. So I think, Ryan, I don't know whether you're going anywhere with what I'm saying, but having that very clear definition of impact and value at the strategic level actually better empowers the teams to do the translation from the product analytics to their contribution to that value or impact. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Cookie, I couldn't agree more. And I think part of our responsibility in product leadership is being able to help those teams tie to it. I think we assume like, oh, they can get there on their own. They're not in all the meetings that we're in for strategy and leadership and all that. And so things that we take for granted of like, how do they know how not to, how to impact churn or this at this like very strategic level. And so we've done a lot of investment around the why with the what, like why are we doing this, and saying it through multiple different channels, through multiple different venues, and really helping that team understand that, okay, the company is focused on this strategy and these things and outcomes and metrics. Like, let's help you translate that down to the team so that every day when you wake up, you can point to like, hey, this is what I'm going after. This is what my goal is. And that's been a huge lift for us as far as getting alignment and having them more invested in it as well, too, at the individual team level.
I love it. I also desperately want to know, Cookie, where you got your shades, because those are, I mean, I think you could win any executive level conversation with those shades.
Cheap off Amazon. They're my blue light glasses. Way too much time in front of the screen.
I got some, but mine don't look as cool as that. I like some badass aviators. Those are awesome. Sorry, Jason.
No, that's great. That's great. So, one of the questions that came up last week on our kickoff to this series, and I think Blossom asked a really good question last week, and that was, okay, so you've got your product strategy, and how do you know your strategy is working, and how do product analytics help us answer that question? I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Deepak, if you would.
Say it again one more time, Jason.
Yeah, sure. So you have your product strategy. How do you know your strategy is working, and how can product analytics help answer that question for us?
So I think it's all about tracking the high level metric, right? For us, it's number one thing that we look at. I think there's two things that we look at every quarter from a product strategy perspective is our bookings growth, right? Quarter over quarter, are we growing? And then our retention, so gross retention. So that tells us if the customers are leaving or if the customer is adding more value, finding different places. So I would say those are the three metrics that we track all the time. And that's where we actually feel that, okay, if I have shipped out a new feature, for example, we shipped out a new AI feature, is it adding value to my product? So the SKU, AI SKU will tell me whether it is selling, right? Or customers buying our product because of the AI SKU or not. And that's what it is. It's ultimately boils down to the, 3 or 4 metrics that we need to track. That's what it is. So I think Ryan mentioned that everyone in the organization is very clear definition of what those metrics are. And if it's a customer success team, they're always looking to improve their growth retention and net retention, like uplifts. And if it's a sales team, they're always looking at bookings growth. So they exactly know what their leadership and the product team is looking at. And that's what we all look at. So we all sing from the same song sheet, I would say. And that's how we know that the strategy works.
A couple of people missed the first one that you listed. If you could repeat that for us.
Bookings growth, right? So it's quarter over quarter, are we growing? I think that's
So bookings growth. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Deepak. And John, you've got your hand up here.
Yeah, and I'll try to be succinct with this, but like the last half a dozen people comments here, and I'm trying to synthesize this all together, starting with Lisa. You talked about the North Star, then Gopal was talking about how to use the analytics. I mean, I've always seen product analytics as more the second layer to help you make decisions for your strategy. And I think, if you always start with the North Star at a portfolio level, like what are we ultimately trying to help customers accomplish? that, you know, they'll never get there 100%. And then you start looking at, and this is, I think, why customer outcomes are so important in this whole equation, right? So if you start with, you know, look at your customers across all of your markets and think about what are the business outcomes most important to them. Then I think when you bring product analytics in, it'll tell you where your products are strong relative to their highest priority outcomes versus where you're weak. And I think if you just look at product analytics in a silo for each product, they can be misleading. I think John Harmer said it right. So if your product is weak in an area that doesn't help customers do something well that's not important to them, don't throw money at it because it's not important to the customers versus something else, right? It's relative. So I think, you know, if the starting point for your product in your portfolio strategies is customer outcomes, and then you use product analytics to figure out where you're really strong, mediocre, and weak, then it starts to form a value-based strategy that you can then tie to the outcomes that your business wants in terms of revenue, use, you know, adoption, usability, all those sorts of things. And then I think product analytics are very helpful in that context. But I think, you know, as everyone has said here, the last half a dozen comments, that context around why should we be doing these things in a value perspective is really, really important to understand that before you dive into product analytics, because they can definitely mislead you.
That's a great insight. That's a great point, John. Thank you very much. Matt Bettina, how are you, sir?
Better finally getting over a second illness here.
Oh no.
It just seems to be just recurring and stalking me. So, to John's point, and even Lisa's, we often go and do that first round of interviews to understand what's important to customers in terms of outcomes and what it is that we're setting out to measure for analytics. However, I feel it's also important, and this is where some of the challenge comes in. You asked the question of how do we know if our strategy is working?
Mm-hmm.
It's important to plan another campaign, a follow-up campaign around specifically understanding the qualitative side of whether or not you've made the mark with your customers in terms of those outcomes. So I guess I have a question for John. What do you feel that second follow-up set of interviews looks like, and what are some of the questions that you might ask customers to understand whether your strategy is working and you're on target with those outcomes according to, how do you bring data into that conversation?
So I think, you know, a well-defined outcome is measurable by nature, right? So even if it's the North Star outcome versus down at a lower level, right? There's a you know, sort of a logical structure to that. To me, if I'm talking to a senior VP over a function like IT or HR or finance, right? You're talking about strategically, what are the outcomes you want in the department? Then you go down to each of the individual functions there. It's the same thing, like, you know, if I'm talking to the head of payroll or benefits or talent management, what outcomes are important to them to support the overall outcome of the HR department? And then what's stopping you from getting there, right? So it's what are you trying to accomplish? Why is that important? And what's stopping you? And I think that third question is really important, because if you look at the things, the obstacles that prevent customers from getting those outcomes, then you look at your product analytics, you get a real clear picture real fast of how well are we helping customers eliminate obstacles that are standing in the way of those outcomes. And the measurement of your strategy is, you know, are customers able to quantify the benefit that new features we deliver are moving the needle on those outcomes? Are we eliminating obstacles enough that we're moving the needle on those outcomes that can be measured? And to me, that's the true measurement of if your strategy is working on a customer value front. The second measure of it is it doing what we want for our company? Is it growing adoption? Are we getting, you know, cross-sell and upsell, or are we bringing in new accounts because of those things, because of those outcomes we're helping customers get? So I think it sort of all ties together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I also think I'm going to bring in point that a colleague of mine, Giant Prathapathi from Capital One, does risk management over at Capital One, made previously to me, which was he had said if you're interviewing customers to understand needs, sometimes it can help to just pull up your screen and share your screen and walk through. In similar fashion with some of that qualitative data and those anecdotes and really trying to validate whether you've met that value that you're trying to deliver to them, I don't think it hurts to ask them to demonstrate for you how your product is meeting that core value proposition that you had initially marketed to them and sold to them. If they're able to, maybe they can just walk you through a smaller example of that. Sometimes it's not as clear cut, but the point being is if you can tie back their demonstration to you of how you're meeting that value, I think that's fantastic. And you, with their permission, you may even be able to spin some of that into some very valuable marketing and recommendation material for other customers.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? Because when you're sitting down having that conversation, it's okay. Our intent was to give you this outcome by eliminating these speed bumps. Show me how we do that. And there you go. You got a testimonial. I mean, it's as clear as day.
Yeah, you're from Missouri, man.
All right.
Show me state.
Right? All right. So we're about to wrap up here. I want to get to Blossom, who's been patiently waiting real quickly, and then jump into that lightning round here in just a second. So Blossom, go for it.
Yes, I was going to ask, what are the current product analytics that you or your team are responsible for or are paying attention to?
Great. Let's start with Lisa on that. Well, Lisa, let's look kind of recent past, I guess, because I know you're working with quite a few different clients. So, Lisa, let us. Why don't you get started with that?
Yeah, well, so I've been primarily building a new product in a company the last 7 or 8 months, and the product is a data and analytics platform for helping health plans sell health plan benefits to employers. So it's all about data, and it's what's key when you're building a product like that too is anybody can effectively get the data, and a lot of sources we were pulling it from public sources, pulling it from the client. We were purchasing data from industry experts, but it's what you do with it. It's the insights, it's the algorithms and the modeling that sits on top of it that really drive the value, in my opinion. So a little different than what we've been kind of talking about from a strategy standpoint and a product marketing strategy and kind of upfront before you get started. But I'm just kind of thinking about it purely in terms of building the product and what users want. So it's insights that are meaningful, that show a clear ROI, an outcome, a value to them, and in a way that's easy to consume and to understand. So that's my thoughts on it.
Great.
Can you share some examples of those insights?
In the case of the products that I was just building in healthcare, it was very specifically, things like, I'll give you just a really clear example. So health plan and how they're selling to an employer group. So you may want to know, where are your employees in a certain geographical location, and what type of disease areas are disease focus? Is there a prevalence of diabetes? Is there a prevalence of heart disease? Is there a prevalence of mental health issues, down to a state level, down to a zip code level, in your employee population? So being able to emphasize and highlight that is important. So again, it's not just we can't just serve that back up to them in a way that, here's all your data, now you go figure out what to do with it. What's meaningful in terms of the product that we're building is going, hey, this is why that matters to you. You need to know that there's a spike in diabetes here, and here's what you can do about it. You can likely implement a cure solution and or bring a wellness program, an exercise program to this population because it looks like they don't have that. So applying a specific solution based off of the data.
Yep. Real quickly, thank you, Lisa. Real quickly, Deepak, what metrics are your team specifically focused on right now from an analytics perspective?
So it's I would say it's the daily usage because we want to keep the customers in our platform, right? So daily usage, monthly active users, right? And also we have multiple features in our product, in our platform, right? So the product feature metrics as well, like are they leveraging all the different capabilities? For example, data sharing, are they leveraging those features? What kind of insights, which dashboards are they using, right? So some of the dashboards are more outcome driven. So are they using that? And also we do have self-service capabilities as well. Are they leveraging the self-service capabilities? Are they going more and more into the dashboard that others have built? So we definitely look at it more from because we are I would say more of a technology company, right? We look at what the technical, how can we reduce the technical friction in terms of product usage? That's what we use. And our customers are using that, that for their, like Lisa mentioned, for their own outcome driven thing, which is more industry specific. And we don't track that right now.
Cool. All right, Ryan, last few seconds. What do you got? What are your teams using right now?
Yeah, I think unique to our business, net revenue retention at the very top is kind of a big driving force. And so, kind of percolating down to the teams, the data that we've interestingly found, because our customers rely on data, but they also don't live in the platform. So like the daily active users doesn't necessarily make a huge difference for us because we have users that just push all their data to their CRM or to Google or to a handful of things. And so it can be misleading to say, okay, well, daily active users is down. They could be getting a great amount of value on those integrations. And so we've done a lot of work around understanding like our customer base to say, even if they have one integration, their likelihood to churn goes down by 50%, just any integration. And then if you get specific integrations, it has a bigger impact as well too. So those are some of the like most recent things that we're kind of hyper focused on the data side is more of what are these things that our customers are using that can point to kind of their health as a customer and the value that they're getting from our product.
Excellent. Thank you. And that brings us to the top of the hour. I have a couple of things I'd like to do, but I want to officially thank our panel for being here today. I really appreciate you bringing your insights. There were a couple of things we didn't get to, so if anybody can hang on for a minute, we will kind of touch on those things real quickly. But thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Deepak. We are so honored to have you here. Really appreciate you bringing your insights to the table for us today. So everybody, give them a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
There were many things we didn't get to, but not all topics that touch product management are intended for one single session, guys.
That is fair. Exactly. That is true.
That comment is mostly to Jason. We should set those aside because those are other week sessions.
So I want to, Mary, are you still with us here? Yeah, Mary, you're on here.
Yes, I am.
I want to, after this, I want to come back around and I want to, for everybody who is able to stick around, if you have some thoughts on that lightning round, I want to do it. But we may have to do it another time. But specifically, I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell everybody about Product Fest that's coming up.
Thank you so much. Hey, folks, I'm dropping a quick link into the chat for you. I'm on the steering committee for an annual conference in Richmond, Virginia. It is called Product Fest. It is May 22nd. And it's a phenomenal, did it come through? Yeah.
Yes, it did.
We have a great lineup. It's not just a conference, it's a conference and a party. And I promise you it's a party. And early bird ticket sales actually expire on April 13th. So if anybody wants to make their way up to Richmond and join, snag your ticket before the prices go up on a couple days from now. Thank you so much.
All right, you bet. Thank you. I don't think we've got enough people on here to kind of do what I had hoped we'd have time to do, but I still, if you're still here, Mary, you had asked the question earlier, and we'll just see what we can make out of it for a little short later. You had asked the question earlier, and you want to repeat your question back for everybody, and then we'll just see who has an answer for it.
Yeah, sure. So I have experience implementing these analytics tools at large companies, enterprises that have really, really huge budgets. Similar to many of you, I've switched over and I'm supporting startups and small companies now. I have a client, many clients that have zero analytics because they didn't even think about it. And so I have been researching and exploring and looking for lightweight, low-cost tools that will help small companies with very limited to zero budgets track user usage across mobile and web, preferably. Hopefully, will potentially connect into a CRM record, and also capture user feedback inside the product interface. Bonus points if there's a tool that could actually send an outside of product survey to the same customers, users as well, and marry all that data up. The reason I'm asking is because the small companies that I have been in or consulted that do have analytics, they have like a cobblestoned or like a cobbled together solution of multiple free or low cost tools, and pulling the data together for insights is a total pain in the ass. Or they've implemented these various desperate tools and it's become so hard, the implementations just fail because it's too hard to marry the data up and learn anything. So they just give up and there's still no data despite tool implementation. So that's my story. That's my need. Any suggestions? I know it's a big question.
It is a big question. So for those who were able to stick around, would love to just kind of, if you've got an answer to it, please do throw your virtual hand up and I will go down as many of them as we can get to. If you have an answer, take about, 30 to 60 seconds tops on that. If we don't have any hands up, we'll do it another day.
I'm happy to drop the question into Slack as well, if that's a better channel, Jason.
Well, it looks like we don't have any quick answers, so but that's okay. I know Deepak from Insight Software is going to have some answers on that specifically. Yeah. We did get quite a few tools mentioned throughout the day, but thanks everybody for being here. And we will be back next week for our premium members. We've got office hours with John Field, who is VP of Products at Talogy. We're going to be talking. We're going to be digging into his approach to product strategy, and you're going to be able to bring your own product strategy questions to ask John, and you can bring really smart questions. You can bring questions that you're afraid are too basic to ask your own leadership. This is kind of a forum. It's not live streamed. It is for our members to spend some time with some great thinkers to answer some really tough questions in a nice intimate forum. So that's next week at Product Coffee with John Field, and we will see you there, I hope. Have a wonderful week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. See you, DJ. See you, Steve.